for Lost Lake Resort, and George Krakewski from Whitney in Texas. Many thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
And perhaps let's begin by looking at the United States. I know home ownership is quite a key area of focus. And if you look at the Kenyans working abroad, that's one of the big areas that they would want to put their money in. Just tell us the experience in terms of the investments that have been coming through from your end.
Well, we've seen a real spike in the number of Kenyan families that have invested in our developments. We develop communities, gated, secure communities in a resort setting. Mm-hmm. And in the last 2 or 3 years, we've totaled over 450 Kenyan families that are invested in our properties.
Okay. And Pete, looking at the trends, what would you say about Africans investing in the United States? Of course, there are lots of fears in terms of how will the ownership be structured? Will they have full ownership, or what is the situation like?
Well, the type of ownership our company offers is a general warranty deed, which guarantees outright full ownership to the land property that they buy. On top of that, we offer fully secured mortgaged financing with a full down payment, which guarantees full securitized financing with that general warranty deed ownership. So it's a very secured type of ownership.
Mm-hmm. Just break down the numbers for us. So far, how many clients have you managed to have in your attempts to convince people to own a piece of Texas or wherever you have landed?
Okay, well, across all of our developments, and really quick, our parent company, Double Diamonds in business for over 44 years. We've got a total of close to 40,000 landowners. Mm-hmm. More specifically, Kenyan property owners, close to 450 Kenyan families have invested in our properties, and that is growing exponentially, mostly through word of mouth, and that is what has brought George and myself to Kenya this week.
Uh-huh. And George, looking at these particular developments, a lot of focus is also coming in where people want to own an asset. But looking at the interest rates and also the currency translation, because they have to work back and see, was this property worth investing in compared to if I would pay the same back home? So what are some of the price ranges that you're talking about when it comes to the land that you have?
Well, I think, Abby, that it represents a great opportunity for somebody in Kenya to make an investment that's going to bring a return. Our properties have returned about 15% a year over the last 5 years. Mm-hmm. And that's in Texas, it's in New York, it's in Pennsylvania. And would you believe that a Kenyan can own property in the United States?
It's sort of unbelievable to some extent.
For about 26,000 Kenyan shillings per month.
Mm-hmm. Wow. 26,000?
26,000.
So tell me about the kind of parcels that you're selling, the sizes. Is it in acres? Is it in hectares? What's the arrangement like?
Well, these are home sites. Mm-hmm. And so we're not talking about large acreage, we're talking about quarter-acre home sites, something that somebody would be interested perhaps in the future in building a second home or a piece of investment property, something that they can use as a rental on in the future.
Uh-huh. And Pete, you seem like you have something to say, but before we get to that, looking at this home ownership,
yes.
We've seen a lot of interest as well from other countries in the West African circuit. How is the West African market performing when it comes to uptake of this kind of properties?
Very well, very well. Very accepting, open-minded, and it speaks a lot to the type of savvy investor and very diversified. Not only do they look to invest in their home country, especially Kenya, but they look to diversify as well. Seemed a very open-minded and trustworthy type of investor, not only in East Africa, but throughout, Asia as well. We see a lot of investors coming from the Philippines, China, mm-hmm. Hong Kong, and Korea as well. So very diversified investor base.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. And perhaps, George, when it comes to the structuring of the ownership arrangement, of course, people would want to know what are the payment options that you have in terms of when it comes to the actual payment for someone to own a property. If you can walk us through that.
Sure, and I would say first that there are different arrangements. We've had single people buy properties. We've had Kenyan families, Kenyan couples. We've even had two Kenyan couples go in together on a piece of property. We've had as many as 4 individual Kenyan people come and buy property at one of our resorts. Mm-hmm. So there is a great opportunity for folks to be able to structure the purchase or the investment as suits their individual situation best.
Of course, one would want to know, what are the interest rates looking like?
Well, what we can do is structure it with as little as 20% down of the overall purchase price. And what we're offering this week with a first-year promotional interest rate of less than 3%, 2.91% for first-year payment, and then fixed on a 20-year term, 6.15%. That would be due in 5 years on a 5-year balloon.
Okay.
Okay. And so, those are the rates that we're actually offer to our domestic clients as well.
Mm-hmm. So what happens in the eventuality that someone defaults in their payment?
Well, the first thing we do is we will try to look at other alternate options to work with them, look at the situation. As we would say, unfortunately, bad things do happen to good people, and we look at it as a case-to-case basis to see if we can make some other types of arrangements. Mm-hmm. And there are always ways we could try to work with them. And in worst-case scenario, we'll try to help them sell that piece of property and divest themselves of that before we'd have to go to any other drastic situations.
So, George, now that you're in the country, perhaps what are some of the key outcomes you anticipate from this visit? Are you looking forward to locking in some deals with Kenyans who have family here but would like to invest in the United States?
Well, sure. If any of your viewers are interested in maybe diversifying their investments and owning property in the United States, I would invite them to join us tomorrow evening at 6:30 at the Hotel Emerald in the Westlands. We are going to go into great detail about these different programs, and we'd love to have them.
But as much as there's this call for people to invest in the United States, we do know what's been happening in the global markets, where commodity prices have been on a downward trend, as well as generally unemployment is still a challenge in the United States. Perhaps what's the assurance and what's the guarantee that if someone puts their money with you guys, they'll be able to make a decent return and it is sustainable over time?
Well, Abby, nobody can predict the future, but if you look at what's happened in the past, it's a pretty good indicator. And I would just remind folks that land isn't going anywhere and they're not making any more of it. It's a hard asset, and it's something that I think everybody should have some in their portfolio to protect against those times you're talking about.
Mm-hmm. Let me throw in Pete as well. What's your comment on that?
Well, I'll almost echo what George said. It is a type of a commodity that is an asset you will own and it will always be there. It's not type of a commodity or a consumer type of good that is, it'll break and after 30 days won't be there, or gold that is going to be subject to sort of outside influences. The real estate in the United States is very solid, always has been, and over time does increase over time. And if you look at history, it has had dips. In the U.S., will increase and appreciate over time.
Mm-hmm. Always comes back.
All right. Perhaps we can get your closing thoughts on what does the future hold in terms of sales for you guys, and are you foreseeing a growing market in Africa?
Absolutely. I think this is literally the tip of the iceberg. We are really scratching the surface here. Our reception in the few days that we've been here on this trip have been tremendous, very exciting. I see this as the first trip of many, and hopefully this grows as the word gets out as to the opportunities that our company presents to the Kenyan market and the African market as a whole. We hope to take this further steps in the future.
George?
I just think it's a great opportunity for even somebody of moderate income to be able to become a property owner and an investor.
Mm-hmm. Many thanks, gentlemen. We've been speaking there to Pete Tarutis, Sales Manager, Lost Lake Resort, and George Krakewski. Your second name is giving my tongue a bit of a challenge. How do you pronounce it?
If you want to say it in Polish, it's Krakewski.
Krakewski.
Yes.
Many thanks, gentlemen, for that interesting conversation around home ownership in the United States. Well, you've heard it from them, and of course, you can catch up with them on their website, which you can follow them also on Twitter as well. Well, away from investments, let's turn our attention to Uganda. Ugandan entrepreneurs are making bags out of banana fiber to try and promote Uganda